Christopher Columbus have to do with, removing the monument up here, and to this movement, and how these two movements connected, and connected with your position?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the answer is absolutely yes. I think we should see Christopher Columbus as the kind of beachhead for what we can now call global white supremacy or European supremacy, which is a sort of colonial system that meant that the peoples who inhabited the continent of Europe basically took global power, and how they did that involved, among other things, invading and colonizing other places and enslaving people in those places and turning their native crops into cash crops. And these are things that Christopher Columbus was really an innovator in doing. So the thing he did was not discover America. I mean, firstly, he never made it to North America, right? But even setting aside the question of where he ended up, what did he do when he got there? Well, it wasn't sort of found a peaceful, happy community. It was instead to take a peaceful, happy community that existed, the Arawaks, and to enslave, attack, mutilate, torture. And I should say, this is not me just saying this or some set of historians or whatever lefties saying this. This is stuff that Christopher Columbus wrote in his own hand in his own journal. So Christopher Columbus, it turns out, kept records of the things he was doing. So we know firsthand what he was up to. So if you say, how are these things connected? Well, Christopher Columbus began, in a sense, the transatlantic slave trade because he sent Arawak natives from their home place in the Caribbean to Europe, right, as slaves. So that's the first instance that we really have of that. Yeah, so firstly on the question of is something history, I think it's better called mythology than history. So you invented a made-up story and then promulgated that story as if it were true. And then you say, here's my made-up story, and you have to respect it. So if we want to talk about history, then at least let's be accurate, right? So what did these people really do? What did they really stand for? What does this flag really mean? Or what do these images really mean? And at the end of the day, the answer to that question is, in the case of the Confederate flag and the Confederate monuments, they didn't go up right after the Civil War. They actually came up with the Second Klan and the Daughters of the Confederacy, who were the women's adjunct to the Second Klan. So when we're talking about these monuments in particular, we're talking about a moment in U.S. history where white people were worried that people of color were going to make advance, that they were going to gain ground. And so out of that concern, of that fear of people of color gaining ground, they said, we need to get organized, so we get the Klan, and then we need to, in public space, be really clear that we dominate public space. So what does that mean? That means you put up monuments, you go to your state capitol, you put a Confederate flag up, you petition to have the Confederate flag included in your state flag, which is what many of them did. So in many of these cases, you're not talking about something that it was just like always there. You're talking about something where they came back 50, 60 years after the fact, and they had fear that the country was going to become too equal, too egalitarian, right? And that's the response.
Thank you for that. That was something I wanted to ask about. I recently learned that, in fact, Columbus Park was beautifully named at one time Unity Park. Could you tell us something about that?
Wow.
And what it means that in this particular historical moment, people are looking to get back to that?
Sure. So, I mean, from my standpoint anyway, if we want to look at sort of why Christopher Columbus, that's a different narrative than the question about the Confederates. And it's one that's maybe more complex, right? Like, so it's true that Italian Americans were, as immigrants, as Catholics, as people from the southern part of Europe, were in fact discriminated against. So that's true. But what did they then? What was their response? Well, their response was, we want to be included within the dominant white United States, right? And so it was a demand or a call to be included within that thing I call global white supremacy.
Right.
So you've held us out of global white supremacy, you let us in, right? So when they put up this Christopher Columbus monument, what are they saying? They're saying, look, Italians were here from the beginning, and the beginning in their mind, right, is the beginning of colonialism.
What's the next steps?
Sure. So right now we have the petition up. I think we're at like 1,500 signatures, which is great.
Yes,
But
nice.
you know, we need as many as we can get. To keep your eyes out, we'll be putting out calls for people to come to Common Council. We need to put pressure on our elected officials if we want to really make this happen. And you know, we're going to get pushback. That's something we have to keep in our mind. There's going to be people who don't want this to happen. So if you think it's the right thing to do, then the best thing to do is join in and make sure you're there. We need your voice to count. On top of that, the thing I would sort of tell everybody to do is go into Buffalo Anti-Racism Coalition official on Facebook. Sign up there. You'll get all the updates you need about what's going on, events, that sort of thing, and we'll try to keep you informed and aware of what's going on with this campaign. And of course, definitely click on change.org. Just check on change.org for the petition to remove the Columbus statue.